Hello once again YouTube, Chris the Nightbringer here, bringing you some World Painter action. You may or may not have seen the Realms of Saeldor trailer. I highly suggest you go take a look at that if you have, because this correlates to my map making abilities, and I wanted to share a map making experience with you from the World Painter stages all the way to the in-game builds that I will be doing. So, this is the second episode of the series so far. The first one was just kind of an introduction as to what the series is, as well as some basic World Painter stuff, if you were following along with me. I forgot to mention this in the last episode. I may put like a note in it if I haven't already, or an annotation possibly. But over here you can see these custom brushes. These are all the brushes that I will be using, and I will allow you guys to download all the custom brushes that I have so that you can use them the way that I use them, because you cannot get anything done with your regular brushes. These are basically all for terrain, and they all have their different purposes, like cliff brush and mountain brush and hills and stuff like that, small cliffs and yeah, all that kind of stuff. So, if you don't already know, we are going to be making Pyke, this island, the island that this castle is on. It's not exactly like we're only building this, we're building the entire island and the two other towns that we know for sure that are on that island. Pretty big towns. One of them is a port, the other one may or may not be a port. I don't actually know if it's a port or not. It could be not a port. And I don't think I'll build it as a port. I think I'll just build it as like a beach town or something. So there's that, and totally cool. Hope you guys are as excited as I am to build this. And here we actually have a map of the area. Down here, by this big red dot, you can see Pyke, the actual island, as well as, the location of the castle on the island, which is where the red dot is. That's the shape of the island that we'll be making. And that's basically what we're going to be doing right now, creating landmass and the seafloor. So I don't want this tutorial to get too extended. We won't be doing the actual coastline and detailing it yet. This is just creating landmass and creating the seafloor. So what we want to do first is we want to get the noise brush. And what we're going to do for the ocean floor is we're going to come in here, and you should be able to see this because I have the contour lines checked. These contours show up at every 10 blocks or so. Well, exactly 10 blocks, every 10 blocks. So, if oh my good fucking lord, I accidentally had the void brush on. I am so sorry. If we go around and start raising this, you can see that I have a contour line showing up, and it's very choppy and jagged, and that's because I have the wrong brush out. We want the noise brush for this. This is basically to make the bottom of the seafloor seem all smooth and nice, and at the same time, a little bit varied. You don't have to go crazy with this, you just want it to look decent. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up this process real quick. You want to do the entire ocean floor with this. And if you're building along with me or using a World Painter tutorial for your own benefits, this is how I make the ocean floor. So give me a moment while I speed this bit up. Now, I forgot to mention, actually, I am using this brush on 100%, and that's just to make it go as fast as humanly possible. Like I said, you don't have to pay a lot of attention to the bottom of the ocean. For the most part, this is kind of how it looks like when Minecraft generates the ocean biome. You don't have to make it go up too high, you don't have to make it go too low, and yes, you can lower it if you want. See this? This is all lowered, whereas this over here, this hill is higher, this hill is lower. It might be a little bit hard for you to see when we start making the terrain come above the water. You'll be able to see it a little bit faster or better. Alright, so I finished, going over the underwater areas, and you may have noticed that I could have just set the ground to be hilly. The only reason I didn't do that is because World Painter kind of generates its hills predictably. There's a lot of times where I've generated hills with World Painter, and there's just straight lines that go on for like 100 or 200 blocks. So I'd rather just use the noise brush and do it myself real quick. It's nothing big, it's nothing special, and that's basically all it is. So now I'm going to be outlining the shape of the landscape. We don't have to use anything insanely crazy right now. Basically, I just want to raise terrain so that it slopes up pretty nicely until it breaks the surface of the water. And if you remember, the water underneath is actually or the land underneath is actually dirt. I'm going to undo that. And what I actually really want to do is get this so that I have a depth of about 10. I'm going to take the flattened area brush. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so I can get the correct block. All of these different contours are different heights. Go increments in, a block. And of course the contour lines are at 10 blocks each. And I want to go to a depth that's about 12 or so blocks. I got 13 here. So now that I have this, I clicked once and it starts to flatten this entire area out. I'm using the sine circle. You can use any of the other three or the other two that are here. I do not suggest using the plateau circle or anything else, but do try using one of these three. I think I might use the spike one actually. Make the brush as big as you can without lagging yourself out to death. And you're going to make the area where the coast raises up to meet the surface of the water. And you're just going to outline, where you want this terrain to go. And if you want, you can fill in the terrain after you made an outline of the coast. The reason you'd want to do this is because this is an island and there is no sea shelf. This is not the edge of a continent. This is just an island. So it's got to come out of the ocean smoothly. You can, if you want, make it a little bit more steeper. And for this island, you actually might want to do that. But we might want some beaches on this island. And of course, there are places where we can just add cliffs and it'll drop right into the water. So, I mean, it's just a safe way of, getting the land up without making it too steep coming out of the water, which is a little bit unrealistic. Even on the edges of cliffs, there's still going to be, shallow water around the edges. It doesn't have to always be a sudden drop off into like fucking 30 feet deep water, or 30-meter deep water. So I'm going to quickly outline the area that I want the coast to be, extend it a little bit further out than the coast you're going to be making above ground, obviously because, it's going to slope nicely into the ocean. One thing before I continue, actually, is if you need to get an idea of how big the area that you're working with, if you want, you can turn on this little eye shape right here, and this is a person's view distance on far render settings, which is the maximum vanilla Minecraft goes to, and that's about how far my brush or this section of land goes out to. If you wanted to know how far a person could see standing in the center of my cursor, that dotted outline is how far they can see. So you can see this is a pretty big map. It's not too big, and it's not going to take long to cross it, but it's pretty decently sized. Alright, so there we have the actual coast coming up a little bit smoother to the shore. Now, if you want to skip, you know, creating the coastline and then adding the, level of detail to it and making it a little bit rough, what you can do is I'm going to grab a terrain brush over here as soon as I can find it. This one right here, it's very flat or long shape. It's on mine called Mountain 13. If you can see the shape of that mountain, if you download the pack, you can use it. I use this one the most for creating flattish areas of land. Basically now I just want to raise the terrain so that it's breaking the surface of the water. And if you want, you don't have to oh god, I lost my train of thought. You don't have to use the raise or lower land tool. You can use the flatten tool as well. The only issue with the flatten land tool is it will be a little bit steeper. If you look right here, this is a 10 block difference in height from going here to here. So you want to be careful with how you use this. That's actually not too bad, and I might just, keep that. But right now I want to bring the land out of the ocean so that we actually have the outline of this island set in stone or dirt, so to speak. I'm also using this brush in order to give it a varied edge so that it's not just a smooth brush like this one would create, which is very ugly. We want varied landscape for this stuff. So when I bring this back out, I'm just going to raise the terrain. We can always lower it again in the future, and this will give it a nice, smooth, and sort of rough transition to the edge of the terrain under the water that we already used and already created. Now, don't be afraid to use the lower terrain tool when dealing with this stuff, and to go back and kind of throw back things that you didn't want to do. You don't have to use the undo button, which is located right here, by the way. You don't always have to do that. It doesn't actually need to be pushed every single time you make a mistake. You can actually just use the tool itself to make a different shape to your landscape. I here am, altering how I want this, how far out I want this ocean to come out, and it's throwing in some very strange shapes underwater, but that's totally okay. Well, that's actually it for creating the landmass of this terrain that we'll be using. Of course, it's still dirt, and we'll paint over that when we actually start paying attention to how the terrain is going to be shaped, and a lot of that's going to come next episode when we cover cliffs and hills and stuff like that. And mountains, maybe. There might not be that many mountains on this particular place. I'm going to leave the Pyke area, which is over here, relatively untouched until we actually get to that, because that's one of the most important parts of this build, because that's where the castle is going to be. And as you can already tell from looking at this image, it's a pretty important part of the what we're trying to achieve with this. It's got to look pretty damn similar to this, so we got to make sure that we don't alter this terrain and save it for a specific video. But in case you're wondering, there's going to be a harbor right here. This is going to be Lordsport, and over here is going to be what's it called? Iron Holt, a smaller and kind of insignificant town over there. These are the three main places that we're going to be building on when we make this map. There are, of course, probably are other villages and stuff on the island. In the actual Game of Thrones universe, this map, or this island, is about 60 miles across. So yeah, I'm not going to make it that big, and I'm not going to worry myself over villages, although I could add a few fishing huts and maybe some crappy farmland over here somewhere, because this place is supposed to be not the best for farming and not the best in terms of, resources. The best they can do really is fish, which kind of sucks. But that's it. That's it for this episode. I'm done, and we've created the ocean floor, as well as created the landmass that we will be using. Very simple. We only used 2 brushes, and that was it. So thanks for watching. Comment, rate, favorite, subscribe. Click the link at the end of the video to watch the next episode when it comes out. And I think that's it for now. Also, if you want the brushes, they'll probably be in the download in the description, of course. And I will see you guys next time.